Plant cells have they've got several differences from animal cells. One of them is their shape. They have angled sides. A lot of times they're kind of rectangular. Another reason for that rectangular shape is the fact that they have this structural organelle that animal cells don't. Okay, because do plants locomote? Nope, they don't. And one of the reasons that they're able to grow really high up in the air and be really structurally sound is the fact that at the cellular level, they have this extra coating around their cell membranes. And that extra coating is called the cell wall. All plant cells have a cell wall. This cell wall is made of cellulose. It's a type of carbohydrate, and it is what is the main component of fiber. When you eat foods that are high in fiber, what you're actually not digesting there, because you don't digest fiber, it goes right through you. It's what helps you go to the bathroom. It's because your body is unable to get energy from it or break it down. We cannot break down these cell walls when we eat plant stuff. Okay? So these cell walls are in charge of providing structural support. All right? They keep that rectangular, tough structure. This is what Robert Hooke saw through the microscope when he looked at old dead cork samples. Okay, corkboard. He looked at unbelievably thin slivers of it under the microscope, and he saw all those square little rooms, one next to the other. Those were the cell walls of long dead plant cells. Cell walls never go away, okay, because they're not made of living material. Cellulose is not living. All right, so we have these cell walls, and on the inside we have cell membranes. Both plant and animal cells have membranes, but only plant cells have walls. And here's the interesting thing. We know that because of the actual large water vacuole that's usually in a plant cell, it pushes the actual nucleus of the plant cell off to the side. Okay, it's not in the center like in an animal cell. So this water is constantly being refilled by the plant, by its roots. It's making its way into all the cells, and the cells using that water. But if you have plants at home and you go away for a while and they don't get extra water, they're going to use the water that they have in their vacuoles. And as a result, if no new water's coming in, what happens to the size of the vacuole? It shrinks. So after prolonged absence of water here, our vacuole tends to be nice and shriveled. Okay? The lake is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. There's very little in it. As a result, the nucleus is still there. The nucleus isn't much smaller. Okay, it's still there. But look at what happens to the actual cell membrane. Now, in the original cell, this big water vacuole here is pushing, it's applying pressure in the cytoplasm against the cell membrane. And that means that the cell membrane is applying pressure against the cell wall. And that is what's keeping the cell with its rectangular shape. But if that water's not there anymore and it's not pushing up against the actual cell wall, the membrane shrivels up as well because there's no more pressure, and it also causes the actual cell wall to shrivel up. Okay? It's no longer the same strong shape that it was. And if you think about this, that if this is happening in one cell in a plant, it's probably happening in all of them. And if all of the cells go from being nice and erect like this, giving you a nice plant that's totally up like so, okay, you end up getting something like this. If all the cells in the organism end up losing their water vacuoles here, and all of the cells end up shrinking in on themselves, then the organism as a whole will wilt. Okay? But you need to understand what's happening to cause that wilting. And that is at the cellular level, those water vacuoles are shriveling up. They're not being refilled. Now, if before the cell dies, okay, before the cell reaches that point of no return, water is given to that plant, the plant will then return to this state. All the cells will return. But if you pass that point of no return where the cell just ends up dying and many cells end up dying, then the plant as a whole will die. The same thing can be said if you add too much water to a plant. If too much water goes in, these cell membranes basically get really, really full, and they cause the cell to burst. And if all the cells start to burst, then the cell as a whole gets mushy, the plant as a whole gets kind of mushy and gross, and it ends up dying. Can't get it back. Once those start to burst, once you start to lose too many cells, the organism as a whole will die. This actual process of this cell membrane being pushed out by the water vacuole, this is called turgor pressure. Could be OR, turgor pressure. Okay? But it all revolves around the water vacuole, and the water vacuole ensuring that it has enough water in it. So for plants, because they only have one, maybe two big water vacuoles, it's what causes the shape to remain rectangular or angled. In animals cells, it's not an issue because we have a lot of tiny, tiny little vacuoles. And if one or two of them get emptied, well, we still have a lot of other ones. But the same thing applies. If we don't have water, we won't necessarily shrivel up and die. We'll just die. We won't shrivel up because our water vacuoles aren't taking up a lot of space. Okay? But we still need them for chemical reactions.